This is Morning Motivation for Educators on the Bee Podcast Network. Learn about all the shows at beepodcastnetwork.com. You'll hear from a variety of formal and informal educators who help put this podcast together. If you'd like to contribute your voice to this show, please go to morningmotivationedu.com to apply.
This is Dudek Brandon, and I am a licensed SLP and the founder and owner of Dr. Karen LLC, a company focused on empowering therapists and educators to design interventions that support language, literacy, and executive functioning. In my current role, I develop engaging professional development and programs that help school teams work together to get better results for students. I'm also the host of the De facto Leaders podcast on the Bee Podcast Network, where I share up-to-date evidence-based practices, my own experience, and guest interviews designed to help pediatric therapists, educators, and aspiring school leaders design services that support social, emotional, and academic growth and set kids up for success in adulthood. Whether you want to learn effective strategies for your therapy session or classroom, be an influential leader on your team, or find creative ways to use your skills to advance in your career, I've got you covered. You can listen to the De facto Leaders podcast on most popular podcast directories, or you can check out episodes on my website at drkarendudekbrannan.com/blog. One of the most popular memes these days is "This meeting could have been an email." As educators, we have a lot of different meetings we need to attend and a lot of things that we need to do during the day, which can make collaboration really difficult. And one of the most common things that we do when we're collaborating with other people is have meetings. Now, I totally get the frustration, and I have been in many meetings that definitely could have been resolved with a quick email that were not a good use of people's time and took them away from other important things they could be doing. But I think that we need to be mindful of going too far in the other direction. And so that's why recently I've been pondering on this meme and this saying and developing some awareness around the way that I set up my day to determine when I should communicate through email or written communication or any other things that can be done using some of the technology that we have available to us versus when I need to be a little more old school about it and maybe schedule a meeting, a call, or even something in person. Now, I love to talk about productivity, and one of my pet peeves is inefficiency. And depending on the context, I might need to go in one direction or the other, where maybe I'm reevaluating some of my time and realizing that we could cut down on some of the face-to-face interaction and let people get to work, versus other times where everybody's a little more siloed off and we actually need to block out time to meet in person because going back and forth through written communication is actually less efficient and is just making people feel a little more siloed off and lonely in their roles. So I've been asking myself a series of questions when I reach out to someone and need to communicate with them to determine if I should go for something really efficient like written communication versus setting up a time to talk with someone. The first question I ask is, what's the point? What am I trying to accomplish with this interaction? For example, when I would be doing scheduling for IEPs or services when I was in the school, especially things like IEP meetings, and I was wanting to get information about when people could meet or get input from teachers about what would be the best time to schedule their students, and I had a pretty good idea of what the teacher's schedule was, I would typically default to email. Also, if I wanted to get a progress update from a teacher, and it was a student where we were both working with them, and I knew that it would be very difficult for us to find a time to meet together, what I would sometimes do is just send a quick progress update via email, written communication to the teacher, just so I knew I was doing it, because I'd rather have some kind of written documentation and communication that the teacher can refer back to rather than not doing it at all. And in that situation, it probably would also be ideal to block out time with the teacher to have a face-to-face conversation. But for certain things, if I want to make sure that I'm getting around and communicating with people regularly, there were some times where the minimum requirement that I would give to myself is that I would follow up via email for a certain group of people at a certain time frame. And I would do the same thing with written communication with parents, and sometimes this would actually be not email, but paper communication with different handouts or updates about what we were doing in therapy. And again, this was not to replace the face-to-face meetings, but it was just to add something in addition to, because I would rather do some form of communication that I knew I could commit to regularly than not do anything at all. And of course, I would be considering what I had to do to maintain legal compliance, but in many cases, I wanted to go above and beyond the minimum requirement. So that's the first question. What is the point of this communication? Is it to maintain legal compliance? Is it to give some kind of an update to make sure that I'm maintaining regular communication with people and I'm not forgetting about it? Am I trying to schedule something? That can help to give clarity on how the format of interaction should transpire. The other question that I would ask myself is, what is the other person's preference? Now, sometimes there are things that could be addressed via written communication, but maybe you're talking with someone who prefers a phone call. Maybe you're talking with someone who doesn't check their email a lot, and it's easier to connect with them if you just stop by their classroom or their office or wherever they work, or just call down to their room. Because many times, if I was communicating in a way that wasn't really aligned with their habits, then there would be people I would be missing, and I wouldn't be able to form a collaborative partnership with them. So that's the second question. So again, the first question was, what's the point? The second question was, what is the other person's preference? And then the final question that I would ask myself is, are there opportunities to accomplish something else here? And the reason that I would ask this question is because there were certain times where I'd be interacting with someone and I know that they would be fine with an email. I know that I could probably get the minimum requirements of the interaction done with an email, but maybe I felt there was some added benefit to talking with them in person. Maybe this is someone that I don't know very well, that I don't have much of a connection to yet, and I would like to develop one. Maybe I've been missing some FaceTime with my coworkers and I just want a time to connect, even if a meeting isn't absolutely necessary. Sometimes just having that FaceTime for connection to build the relationship is more of a long-term game than something that is what you need to accomplish in the short term. So I would always look for those opportunities to determine if it makes sense to set up a face-to-face meeting with someone, even if I'm not exactly sure what we need to accomplish, even if I think there's probably something we could easily resolve with an email exchange. If I feel like there is some benefit to building that relationship with the other person, then I might go ahead and try to set a time to talk with them, because there could be some added benefits to doing it that may not be readily apparent right away. Because it's kind of gotten trendy to be all about technology and productivity and efficiency, which of course are things that are really important, especially when you have a busy schedule. But we can't forget that it's not just about efficiency and productivity. Sometimes it's just nice to pause and connect with someone, even if you don't feel like you got a ton done in the meeting, even if you don't know what the outcome is of that interaction right away. Sometimes just taking the time to connect with someone for the purpose of connecting with them is something that could benefit you in the long run. So if you are someone who is very productivity minded, or if you're working with people who are very productivity minded, I would invite you to shift the language you use around this popular meme, "This meeting should have been an email," and instead approach it with a sense of curiosity. More, could this meeting be an email? And is it beneficial to think about it in some other way?
Thanks for listening. And whatever role you have in education, we have a podcast for you at bpodcastnetwork.com. Who among your friends and colleagues needs to hear this message today? Please share it with them right now.